This is part of my video series, which is called Experiences in Medicine. And I'm talking about things that have happened, either from questions from family, friends, uh, or from experiences in the practice which we run. One of the things that have become a problem in the modern world is trust. And often enough, because people feel that doctors or politicians have an interest in certain things, therefore what they say become hard to believe. So therefore a doctor who works for a government is believed to parrot what the government says. A doctor who works for a hospital is believed to parrot what the hospital says. And a doctor who happens to be involved in pharmaceutical companies also believed to parrot what the pharmaceutical company says. So then it becomes an area of trust, and that's why I get many patients, I get friends and family who ask me about things directly, believing that as we run an independent practice, that we will say the truth about what happens. And I think that's what comes to it, is an element of trust. And this time around, I'm going to talk about vaccines because I've been having a lot of nurses, doctors asking me about the vaccine. One of the things which I should say from the outset is that I actually got the vaccine on Thursday, which was the Pfizer vaccine. But I want to talk briefly about vaccines because of the WhatsApp conspiracy, Facebook conspiracies that occur. First of all, most of the common vaccines that are occurring, that are being produced now, are usually by four main methods. One of them is an inactivated vaccine, which is a tried and true ways in which vaccines have been manufactured for years. And what they use is a weakened virus, particle, and that forms a vaccine. And that's what we're used to in making vaccines for time immemorial. Of course, there's also the protein-based vaccines, which also are used in being produced a vaccine where protein that is expressed in that virus is used to produce the vaccine. There's also the viral vector vaccine, in which a virus is genetically engineered but does not cause disease and is used to be able to produce a vaccine. And of course, the modern day vaccine, which allows us in the United States to be at the cutting edge of technology, is the mRNA vaccines or DNA vaccines. And I think this is an excellent innovation that has set the United States above every other country when it comes to technology and biotech especially. So let's start with the common vaccines that we're aware of. And one of the reasons I'm even talking about it is also because many people from immigrant populations are also afraid about vaccines and want to know what's happening in other areas of the world. So the Pfizer vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. It costs probably about $20, and has been purchased by the US, by Singapore, by United Kingdom, by India, as well as by Germany. The newer vaccine, which was just approved, the Moderna vaccine, is also an mRNA vaccine and probably costs a little bit more. And the reason why is because it can be stored at a temperature that is a little bit less than what the Pfizer vaccine can be stored at. The Pfizer vaccine requires a storage requirement of about -70, while the Moderna vaccine requires a storage requirement of about -20. So the Pfizer vaccine approximately about $20, the Moderna vaccine approximately about $33. And the Moderna vaccine already by the US, the Singapore, and the United Kingdom also are the great purchasers of this vaccine. The technology used, the mRNA, has actually been in existence since 1990. And even though the time-tested inactivated way of making vaccines has been well known, but in reality, this is not a really new technology. Of course, the next vaccine that is also on the horizon is the Oxford University vaccine that has been researched along with AstraZeneca. And this is actually going to be one of the cheapest vaccines possible. It uses the technology of a viral vector vaccine where you have a genetically engineered vaccine, and it's going to cost about $4. And it can be stored at a regular free temperature. And I believe that the US, the UK, and will be one of the major customers for this vaccine, but more importantly, one of the largest vaccine makers in the world, or producers in the world, is India, and India will be one of the people testing vaccine under the name of Covishield. And therefore, this already, the vaccine is going to be given already now in India to thousands of volunteers. So essentially, why are people reluctant about getting vaccine? One, because of the technology, but however, I've mentioned now the technology is actually not really new. It's been in existence since the 1990s, and in reality, one of the most important things that we in the United States should realize is that the two vaccines that have been approved actually have probably the highest effectiveness of all the vaccines that have been manufactured anywhere else in the world. Pfizer has a 97% effectiveness, Moderna about a 95% effectiveness, and therefore we are comfortable with the fact that we have not spent so much money on a vaccine without being able to see that it's effective. Now, one of the things in the United States which living in the United States can be a problem is that we think that the whole world begins and ends in the United States. However, there are vaccines that are actually occurring in other parts of the world. And the two major countries which are in competition with the United States is China and Russia. Russia has the Gamaleya vaccine, or what is called the Sputnik 5 vaccine, and it's actually 92% effective, at least by what they have mentioned. Because apart from the AstraZeneca, who has actually published their findings in a peer-reviewed literature, almost all these vaccines have now been approved under emergency authorization. And of course, many of the organizations have had privy or had the ability to look at what work was done, but otherwise, no other vaccine makers have published their results in a peer-reviewed literature. But from what we've known and from what we've read, we've seen that many of these vaccines are quite effective. And Gamaleya Sputnik vaccine is actually being given right now in Russia. I think Russia must have given close to maybe 500,000 to 1 million of that vaccine already, while it's also going to be marketed in India. One of the reasons why it's being marketed in other parts of the country or parts of the world is that sometimes the people who are making the vaccines no more have such a high prevalence of coronavirus. And there's a reason why you'll find out that many vaccine makers are actually having a vaccine tested in different parts of the world where coronavirus is still active. The other competing country is China, and China was initially where coronavirus spread rapidly before it spread everywhere else in the world, and there are about 3 major candidates there for the vaccine. One of them is called the Sinopharm vaccine, that's Sinopharm, and it's about 86% effective. It's manufactured by the old method of inactivated or weakened viruses, and is already been given to almost 1 million people in China, and has been given to about 100,000 people in the United Arab Emirates, and is already being marketed in Bahrain, Egypt, as well as Peru. They also have a Sinovac vaccine, that's Sinovac, which is also a Chinese vaccine, also about 86% efficacy, and it can be stored in a regular fridge, and actually has been tested extensively in Brazil. Indonesia has orders from China, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Singapore, Turkey, and Chile. So essentially, this has already been marketed in different parts of the world, and they have already started to receive shots of this vaccine. Another important vaccine made by China is the CanSino vaccine, that's CanSino. This is the only vaccine that's made by a private pharmaceutical company in China. The Sinopharm, the Sinovac are made by government-owned industry, and therefore have always a politicization that is associated with the vaccine. However, the private farm in China has tested their vaccine in Mexico, which is just next door to us, Saudi Arabia, and is also tested in Pakistan. One of the reasons we find that a lot of the Chinese vaccine are tested somewhere else because coronavirus in itself has already declined in significant amounts in China, and therefore they need places where people are being infected for it to be tested effectively. So, in a summary, these are the vaccines that are available, and my recommendation is that you get a vaccine. One, because in the United States we have the most effective vaccines, for which I told you 97% to 95%. The chances of, because of the mRNA nature of the vaccine, there's no inactivated vaccine, there's no genetically engineered vaccine, and of course, apart from the fact that it has to be stored under rigorous condition, is the best vaccine with the least likely to have a significant allergic reaction in people. So the WhatsApp and the Facebook, where they say that it's going to change your DNA or it's going to make you not be able to get pregnant, is all hogwash. That's my word. But I will mention, especially because I attended several panels where COVID vaccine was discussed. One was by the American Association of Nigerian Physicians, which mentioned about the cost of the vaccine, whether it's useful in the third world. But I've mentioned at the beginning of this talk that vaccines like the Oxford vaccine will cost as low as $4, and there's no reason why the entire world cannot be vaccinated. All that is the cost. We don't always have to have a $33 vaccine like Moderna or Pfizer. And by the way, there are other smaller contenders in the vaccine makers. An example is Cuba. Cuba has made vaccines for years, and they already have a vaccine in the market, which will probably be tested in Latin America, especially in Argentina and Brazil, and probably Mexico, which still has a good amount of people corona vaccine. Now, Cuba is not a small player. As I've said, one of the things which had brought Cuba into the limelight was always their level of medical care. And in fact, for people like us who are pulmonologists, the lung cancer vaccine called Sinovac has been one of the things that had made Cuba one of the cutting edge vaccine makers in the world. For me, that I'm Nigerian researchers actually, through their genomics research, have actually identified a potential candidate for the vaccine. And essentially, probably, if the finances exist, they probably will be able to produce a cheap vaccine that will probably be able to vaccinate thousands of people in millions of people in Africa. Of course, I will not rule out India. The India Medical Council also have a vaccine separate from the Covishield, which is called the Covaxin, which is also research from the India Medical Research Council. So in essence, there is a great need for coronavirus to be brought under control. And the easiest way to bring it under control in the entire world is vaccine. Most of the treatment we give has not worked and is not working effectively for patients who do get symptomatic and eventually may die from the virus. And I feel, and my recommendation is that the vaccine is safe, especially the Pfizer and the Moderna. And I recommend for all my patients who ask me whether they should get a vaccine, I say yes. So we may do another continuation of this talk, depending on what comments or what questions that I get again in the office or for my children. And I thank you very much.